Genius isn't lightning. It isn't luck. It isn't a viral moment. Genius is repetition. Genius is structure. Genius is what you do when no one is watching. The world celebrates breakthroughs, but breakthroughs are built in boring mornings. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your daily habits. This audiobook is not about IQ. It's about discipline. It's about patterns. It's about training your mind to operate at a higher standard every single day. Because genius isn't dramatic. It's daily.
Chapter 1. Stop waiting for inspiration. Inspiration is unreliable. Discipline is predictable. That's the truth most people avoid. They sit around waiting for the perfect mood, the perfect idea, the perfect moment, and while they wait, someone else is working. You say you want to write, but you're waiting to feel creative. You say you want to build a business, but you're waiting to feel confident. You say you want to change your life, but you're waiting to feel ready. Listen carefully. Genius does not wait for feelings. Genius builds systems. You have a choice. You can be controlled by emotion, or you can be controlled by discipline. That's the key. Inspiration is a visitor. Discipline is a resident. Inspiration shows up randomly. Discipline shows up daily. If you build your life around inspiration, you will live randomly. If you build your life around discipline, you will live intentionally. Act first, feel later. Say it again. Act first, feel later. Most people reverse the order. They want to feel inspired first, then act. That's backwards. Action creates inspiration. Motion creates clarity. Work creates motivation, not the other way around. You don't need their permission. You don't need the perfect mood. You don't need a spark from the universe. You need to start. Let's break the illusion. Think about the days you actually felt motivated. Did it come from nowhere? Or did it come after you started? You open the laptop reluctantly. You write one sentence, then another, and suddenly momentum appears. That's not magic. That's activation energy. The hardest part of any task is the beginning. The mind resists effort. It wants comfort. It wants distraction. Scrolling feels easier than building. Talking feels easier than doing. Planning feels easier than executing. But genius lives in execution. You have a choice: comfort now or growth later. Every time you wait for inspiration, you train your brain to depend on emotion. Every time you act without inspiration, you train your brain to depend on discipline. And discipline is power. Look at high performers in any field. They don't wake up inspired every day. They wake up scheduled. They don't negotiate with their mood. They follow their routine. That's the difference. Average people ask, "Do I feel like it?" Genius asks, "Is it scheduled?" That's the key. If you rely on how you feel, your productivity will fluctuate. If you rely on structure, your results will compound. Let's get practical. You want to write? Set a time. Write at that time, every day. You want to train? Set a time. Train at that time, every day. No emotional debate, no dramatic build-up, no announcement on social media, just repetition. You don't need their permission. You don't need applause. You need consistency. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Waiting for inspiration is often disguised fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. So you delay. You say, "I'm just not inspired today." But what you really mean is, "I'm afraid to produce something imperfect." Perfectionism is procrastination in disguise. Genius produces volume. then improves quality. You cannot edit a blank page. You cannot refine what doesn't exist. Create before you feel ready, because you will never feel fully ready. Confidence is built through repetition. Clarity is built through repetition. Skill is built through repetition. That's the key. You don't wait until you feel strong to lift weights. You lift weights to become strong. The same applies to your mind. You act first, then strength follows. Act first, feel later. Let's talk about identity. If you only work when inspired, your identity becomes fragile. You become someone who needs conditions to succeed. But if you work regardless of emotion, your identity shifts. You become someone who executes, and identity drives behavior. When you see yourself as disciplined, you behave differently. You don't ask, should I? You say, this is what I do. That's power. The world is full of talented people who never developed discipline, and it's full of disciplined people who outperformed more talented competitors. Talent is overrated. Consistency is undefeated. You have a choice. Be talented and inconsistent, or be disciplined and dangerous. Let me challenge you. For the next 30 days, remove inspiration from the equation. Set a small, non-negotiable action, not something dramatic, something sustainable. 500 words a day, 30 minutes of study, 20 minutes of exercise, and do it regardless of mood, especially when you don't feel like it. Those days matter most. Anyone can act when inspired. Few can act when bored. Fewer can act when tired. Almost no one acts when discouraged. That's why discipline is rare, and rarity creates value. You want genius-level output? Build genius-level standards. Standards are not emotional. They are structural. You don't skip brushing your teeth because you're uninspired. Why? Because it's a standard. Make your craft a standard. Make your growth a standard. Make execution a standard. No negotiation. You don't need their permission. You don't need external validation. You need repetition. Here's something else most people misunderstand. Inspiration often comes from progress. When you see improvement, you feel excited. When you feel stuck, you feel discouraged. But progress only comes after consistent action. So if you wait for inspiration, and inspiration comes from progress, and progress comes from action, then waiting guarantees stagnation. That's the trap. Break the cycle. Act first, feel later. Every great body of work you admire was built on days the creator didn't feel like showing up. Every strong mind was built on days discipline overpowered emotion. Every breakthrough was preceded by boring repetition. Genius isn't dramatic, it's daily. You won't always feel powerful. You won't always feel clear. You won't always feel motivated, but you can always choose action. You have a choice. Emotion is temporary. Standards are permanent. Feelings fluctuate. Systems stabilize. If you want a stable life, build stable habits. Let me ask you something direct. What are you currently delaying because you don't feel ready? Be honest. The book? The channel? The course? The fitness journey? The skill? Now ask yourself this. If you removed emotion from the decision, what would you do today? Do that. Not tomorrow. Today. Small action, immediate execution. That's the key. Genius is not about intensity. It's about reliability. Can you rely on yourself? Can you trust yourself to follow through? Or do you break promises to yourself weekly? Self-trust is built by keeping small commitments. You say you'll do it, then you do it. Even when uninspired, especially when uninspired. That's where self-respect grows. And once self-respect grows, momentum follows. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates expansion. Expansion creates opportunity. But it all starts with one thing. Stop waiting. Stop negotiating. Stop dramatizing the beginning. Sit down. Start. Act first. Feel later. Here's your takeaway. Inspiration is optional. Discipline is required. You don't need a spark. You need a schedule. You don't need to feel powerful. You need to execute powerfully. Because once you master action without emotion, you unlock the next level, protecting your mornings like your future depends on it. And it does.
Chapter 2. Protect the first hour of your day. Win the morning. Win the mind. The first hour of your day is not just another hour. It is the steering wheel. If you lose it, the day drives you. If you control it, you drive the day. Most people wake up and immediately surrender. They grab the phone, they scroll, they react. Before their feet hit the floor, they are already behind. Notifications, messages, news, other people's priorities, and just like that, their focus is fragmented. You have a choice. You can start your day reacting, or you can start your day directing. That's the key. The first hour determines your mental posture. Reactive posture is weak. Intentional posture is powerful. When you check your phone first thing in the morning, you train your brain to seek stimulation. You teach it, before I think, before I create, before I build, give me dopamine. And then you wonder why deep work feels hard. You don't need their permission to protect your time. You don't need to reply instantly. You don't need to be available 24/7. You don't need to consume before you produce. Win the morning, win the mind. Let's get direct. If your first hour belongs to the world, your day will never belong to you. Your mind in the morning is fresh, uncluttered, unscarred by the day's chaos. It is your highest quality thinking window. And most people waste it. They use their sharpest mental state for scrolling. Genius does the opposite. Genius uses the first hour to build, to think, to plan, to create, before noise enters. You have a choice. Protect it or donate it, because that's what you're doing when you scroll first thing. You're donating your clarity. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you can't control the first hour of your day, you don't control your life. That's not dramatic. That's accurate. Control begins in small windows. The first hour is a test. Can you resist impulse? Can you delay stimulation? Can you sit in silence? You don't need their permission to disconnect. Turn off notifications. Airplane mode is power. Silence is power. Stillness is power. Most people are addicted to noise. They fear quiet mornings because quiet mornings force reflection. Reflection forces responsibility. Responsibility forces change. And change is uncomfortable. But growth lives in discomfort. Win the morning, win the mind. So what should you do in that first hour? Simple. No phone, no social media, no external input. Instead, move your body, write your thoughts, read something that strengthens you, review your goals, plan your priorities. This is not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Even 30 minutes of focused control beats 60 minutes of chaotic reaction. You don't need 2 hours. You need discipline. Inspiration is unreliable. Discipline is predictable. Remember Chapter 1? Act first, feel later. You may not feel like waking up early. You may not feel like journaling. You may not feel like reading. Do it anyway. Act first, feel later. Because once you complete one disciplined action in the morning, something shifts. You feel in control. And control builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds execution. That's the key. Let's talk about mental contamination. The world is loud. Bad news, comparison, outrage, drama. If that enters your mind first thing in the morning, it shapes your thinking. Your emotional baseline drops. Your focus fractures. And now you're trying to build something great on a polluted mental foundation. Protect the first hour like it's sacred, because it is. This is not about productivity hacks. This is about identity. When you wake up and immediately execute your morning routine, you reinforce something powerful. I am disciplined. Identity is built through repetition. You do it once, it's an action. You do it daily, it's who you are. You have a choice. Be someone who reacts to life, or someone who designs it. Design requires space, and space is created in silence. Let me challenge you. For the next 14 days, commit to this rule. No phone for the first 60 minutes. Not 5 minutes, not 10, 60. During that hour, do one thing that moves your life forward. Not urgent tasks, important tasks. There's a difference. Urgent tasks feel loud. Important tasks feel quiet. Genius works on what's important before it becomes urgent. That's discipline. You don't need their permission to prioritize your growth. If someone expects an instant reply at 6 a.m., that's their anxiety, not your responsibility. You are not required to be constantly available. You are required to protect your potential. Win the morning, win the mind. Now let's go deeper. Why does the first hour matter so much? Because your willpower is highest in the morning. As the day progresses, decisions drain you. Conversations drain you. Problems drain you. By the evening, you're negotiating with yourself. I'll start tomorrow. But in the morning, your mind is clear. Your standards are stronger. Your excuses are weaker. Use that advantage. Most people waste their advantage daily and then complain about lack of progress. You have a choice. Use your peak state intentionally or waste it accidentally. That's the key. Let's remove another lie. You don't need a complicated routine. You don't need ice baths and 25-step rituals. You need consistency. Wake up, hydrate, move, think, execute. Simple. The power is not in complexity. The power is in repetition. If you protect your first hour for a year, your life will not look the same, because that's 365 hours of focused growth. That's weeks of deep work, weeks most people donated to distraction. This is how separation happens. Quietly, daily, without drama. Genius isn't loud in the morning. It's disciplined. And here's something powerful. When you win the morning, you walk differently. You speak differently. You decide differently. Because you already kept a promise to yourself. Self-trust increases, and self-trust changes everything. You stop doubting your ability to follow through. You stop negotiating with laziness. You become someone who executes early. And early execution creates advantage. You don't need their permission to build your advantage. You don't need applause for waking up disciplined. You need results. And results start before the world wakes up. Now imagine this. Two people want success. One wakes up and scrolls. The other wakes up and builds. One reacts to the world. The other prepares for it. After 30 days, there's a difference. After 6 months, it's visible. After 3 years, it's undeniable. And it all started with one protected hour. Win the morning, win the mind. But let me warn you, the first few days will feel uncomfortable. Your fingers will reach for the phone automatically. Your brain will crave stimulation. That's addiction talking. Discipline interrupts addiction. You have a choice. Feed the habit or break it. Act first, feel later. Eventually, something shifts. You wake up and crave clarity instead of chaos. You start valuing silence. You start respecting structure. And once your mornings are controlled, something bigger becomes possible. Designing your entire life around systems instead of emotions. Because protecting your mornings is just the beginning. Next, you must learn to stop chasing goals and start building systems that make success automatic. That's where real genius lives.
Chapter 3. Think in systems, not goals. Goals are events. Systems are lifestyles. That's the difference most people miss.
A goal says, I want to write a book. A system says, I write 500 words every day. A goal says, I want to get fit. A system says, I train at 6 a.m. 5 days a week. A goal is a destination. A system is a structure. And structure wins. You have a choice. Chase outcomes or build processes. That's the key. Most people are addicted to goals. They love the excitement of setting them. They love the fresh start energy. They love announcing them. But excitement fades. And when excitement fades, execution stops, because there was no system holding it in place. Let's be honest. How many goals have you set in your life? How many did you actually achieve? Now ask yourself, was the problem the goal or the lack of a system? Goals don't fail. People fail to build systems. That's the uncomfortable truth. A goal without a system is wishful thinking. A system without a goal still produces progress. Read that again. If you write daily, you will eventually have a book, whether you obsess over the outcome or not. If you train consistently, you will eventually get stronger, whether you constantly check the mirror or not. Systems create inevitability, and inevitability is power. You don't need their permission to stop chasing hype. You need structure. Here's where most people go wrong. They focus on results. Results are slow. Systems are immediate. When you follow a system today, you win today, even if the results aren't visible yet. That's the key. Systems reward discipline instantly. Results reward discipline eventually. And most people quit in the eventually. They don't see progress fast enough. They get discouraged. They change direction. They start over. Again and again and again. That's why they stay stuck. You have a choice. Be emotionally attached to outcomes or be committed to the process. If your happiness depends on results, you will live on a roller coaster. If your satisfaction comes from following your system, you will live in stability. Stability creates confidence. Confidence creates expansion. Let's get practical. What system are you currently running for your goals? If you want to grow your mind, what's the daily input system? If you want to grow your income, what's the daily output system? If you want to grow your discipline, what's the daily accountability system? If you don't have a daily system, you don't have a real plan. You have a wish. And wishing is passive. Systems are active. Act first, feel later. You may not feel excited about repetition. You may not feel inspired by structure, but repetition is what separates amateurs from professionals. Professionals don't rise to the level of their goals, they fall to the level of their systems. That's the key. Let's talk about identity again. When you focus on goals, your identity becomes conditional. I'll feel successful when. I'll feel confident when. I'll feel proud when. But when you focus on systems, your identity shifts immediately. I am someone who writes daily. I am someone who trains consistently. I am someone who studies every day. You don't wait to arrive, you become. That's power. And here's another truth. Goals are motivating at the beginning. Systems are sustaining in the middle. The middle is where most people quit. The middle is boring. The middle is repetitive. The middle doesn't get applause. But genius is built in the middle. Daily habits of genius minds are not glamorous. They are structured. Structured thinking, structured time, structured effort. No drama, just execution. You don't need their permission to simplify your approach. Stop trying to reinvent the plan every week. Pick a system, commit. Refine slowly, but don't abandon it emotionally. Emotion destroys consistency. Systems remove emotion from the equation. You don't ask, do I feel like it? You ask, is this what I do? That's the key. Let me challenge your thinking. Imagine two people. Person A sets a goal to lose 10 kilograms. They think about it constantly, they visualize it, they talk about it, but they have no meal system, no workout schedule, no tracking habit. Person B sets up a system. Meal prep every Sunday, work out at 7 a.m. 5 days a week, track calories daily. They don't obsess over the scale, they obsess over the routine. Who wins? Always the one with the system, because systems eliminate decision fatigue. Decision fatigue kills momentum. Every time you rely on willpower, you burn energy. Every time you rely on systems, you conserve it. You have a choice. Burn energy negotiating with yourself, or conserve energy through structure. That's the key. Now let's talk about emotional stability. When you focus only on goals, setbacks feel catastrophic. You miss one workout and feel like a failure. You skip one writing session and feel behind, because your mind is attached to the outcome. But when you focus on systems, setbacks become data. You adjust, you continue. No drama, just correction. Systems create resilience. Resilience creates longevity. Longevity creates mastery. And mastery looks like genius to the outside world, but it's just structured repetition, daily, quietly. Let's remove another illusion. You don't need a perfect system, you need a consistent one. Perfectionism is another form of procrastination. I'm still designing my routine. I'm optimizing my workflow. I'm researching productivity tools. Stop. Execution beats optimization. Build a simple system. Start. Refine later. Act first. Feel later. You may not feel certain about your structure. Good. Certainty grows through use, not theory. Genius minds understand something simple. The compound effect of small systems is unstoppable. 1 page a day is 365 pages a year. 1 hour a day is 365 hours a year. Most people underestimate small daily actions and overestimate short-term intensity. They sprint for a week, burn out, disappear. Systems are slow burns, but slow burns build empires. You don't need their permission to slow down and build properly. Let others chase hype. You build structure. And here's the final shift. Stop asking, "What's my goal?" Start asking, "What's my daily standard?" If your standard is daily improvement, you will evolve endlessly. If your standard is emotional action, you will fluctuate endlessly. You have a choice. Live in reaction or live in repetition. Because repetition shapes identity, and identity shapes destiny. Here's your takeaway. Goals inspire. Systems transform. If you want genius-level results, build genius-level systems. Show up daily. Measure lightly. Adjust calmly. Repeat relentlessly. And once your systems are in place, you'll notice something powerful. Your focus sharpens. Your time becomes more intentional. And you'll realize the next enemy of genius isn't lack of goals. It's mental clutter. And that's what we eliminate next.
Chapter 4. Eliminate mental clutter. Clear mind, clear execution. Your brain is not designed to handle constant noise, notifications, open tabs, unfinished tasks, unmade decisions, unspoken worries. That's clutter. And clutter kills genius. You think you have a productivity problem. You don't. You have a focus problem. And focus is impossible in chaos. You have a choice. Keep everything in your head or clear it out intentionally. That's the key. Mental clutter is invisible, but its effects are obvious. You procrastinate more. You forget small things. You feel overwhelmed without knowing why. It's not because you're incapable. It's because your mind is overloaded. Imagine trying to run a high-performance machine with 47 apps running in the background. It slows down, it overheats, it crashes. That's your brain right now. Clear mind, clear execution. Genius minds simplify. They don't romanticize being busy. They reduce decisions because every decision costs energy. What should I wear?
What should I eat? When should I work? What should I start first? If you ask these questions daily, you waste power daily. You don't need their permission to simplify your life. Eat similar meals, schedule fixed work hours, pre-plan your week, automate small decisions. The fewer unnecessary decisions you make, the more power you preserve for meaningful work. That's the key. Let's talk about open loops. An open loop is anything unfinished that lives in your head, an email you haven't replied to, a task you haven't scheduled, a conversation you're avoiding, a goal you haven't clarified. Each one consumes mental space, and mental space is limited. You think ignoring it makes it disappear. It doesn't. It lingers. It drains. You have a choice: close the loop or carry the weight. High performers close loops quickly. Reply, schedule, delete, decide. Indecision is clutter. Decision creates clarity. Even a wrong decision is cleaner than constant hesitation. You don't need perfect clarity. You need committed direction. Act first, feel later. Another source of mental clutter? Comparison. Scrolling through other people's achievements, measuring your chapter 1 against someone else's chapter 20. That's poison. You start doubting your pace, your ability, your value. And now your mental energy is split, half building, half worrying. You don't need their permission to disconnect from comparison. Mute, unfollow, limit exposure. Protect your mental environment, because environment shapes output. Clear mind, clear execution. Now let's talk about physical clutter. Your external environment affects your internal state. Messy desk, cluttered room, chaotic workspace. It signals disorder to your brain. You sit down to work and your mind feels scattered. Clean space, focused mind. It's not about aesthetics, it's about psychology. Take 10 minutes every day to reset your environment. Clear desk, organized tools, defined workspace. You're telling your brain, this is where focus happens. That's the key. Genius doesn't thrive in chaos, it thrives in structured simplicity. Now let's address something deeper: emotional clutter. Unresolved resentment, unspoken frustration, lingering guilt. These are heavy. You carry them into your work, into your decisions, into your discipline, and they cloud your thinking. You have a choice: suppress it or process it. Journal, have the conversation, forgive, let go. Mental clarity requires emotional honesty. You cannot build a sharp mind on top of suppressed tension. Clear mind, clear execution. Now let's talk about multitasking. It's a myth. You're not doing two things at once. You're switching rapidly, and every switch drains energy. Switching tasks repeatedly is like slamming the brakes while driving. It wastes fuel. Deep work requires uninterrupted attention. Single task, one screen, one objective, one outcome. That's power. You don't need their permission to work in silence. Turn off notifications, close extra tabs, put the phone away. Protect your attention like it's currency, because it is. Your attention is your most valuable asset. Where attention goes, life grows. If your attention is fragmented, your growth will be fragmented. You have a choice: guard it or scatter it. That's the key. Let's simplify further. If something doesn't move your life forward, question its place. Not everything deserves your mental energy. Not every debate needs your opinion. Not every message needs your immediate reply. Not every opportunity needs your yes. Clarity grows when you say no more often. No to distraction. No to unnecessary commitments. No to draining conversations. Every no protects your focus, and focus builds genius. Here's a practical reset strategy. Every night, do a mental download. Write down everything on your mind: tasks, worries, ideas, reminders. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Your brain is for thinking, not for storing random information. When you externalize your thoughts, your mind relaxes. It doesn't have to hold everything. It can focus.
That's the key. Another question. How many projects are you juggling right now? Be honest. 5? 10? More? Scattered effort produces scattered results. Pick fewer priorities. Go deeper. Depth beats width. Always. Genius is not doing everything. It's doing the right things intensely. Clear mind, clear execution. Now let's confront another habit: constant content consumption. Podcasts, videos, news, updates. Input is important, but too much input without output creates congestion. You become intellectually bloated. You know a lot, but you produce little. Balance input with execution. For every hour you consume, create. For every lesson you learn, apply something. Knowledge without action becomes clutter. Action creates clarity. Act first, feel later. And here's something powerful. When your mind is clear, decisions become easier. When decisions become easier, execution becomes faster. When execution becomes faster, momentum increases, and momentum builds confidence. Clutter slows momentum. Clarity accelerates it. You don't need their permission to simplify aggressively. Delete apps, unsubscribe from emails, limit meetings, cut distractions. This is not extreme, this is strategic. You are building a genius-level mind, and genius-level minds are selective. Selective with time, selective with energy, selective with focus. You have a choice: live overloaded or live intentional. Remove what doesn't matter, double down on what does. Because once your mental space is clean, something powerful happens. You can finally go deep, and depth is where rare value is created. Here's your takeaway. Clutter is silent sabotage. If your mind feels chaotic, your results will be chaotic. Simplify your environment, close open loops, reduce decisions, protect your attention. Clear mind, clear execution. And once your mind is clear, you're ready for the next step, practicing deep work daily. Because focus without depth is still shallow, and shallow effort never creates genius.
Chapter 5. Practice deep work daily. Depth over distraction. That's the rule. In a distracted world, focus is rare, and rarity creates value. Most people never go deep. They skim, they scroll, they sample, they dabble, and then they wonder why their results are average. Because shallow effort creates shallow outcomes. You have a choice. Be constantly busy or be intensely focused. That's the key. Deep work is uninterrupted concentration on one meaningful task. No notifications, no switching, no background noise pulling at your attention. Just you and the work. It sounds simple. It's not. Because distraction is addictive. Your brain craves novelty. New message, new video, new update. Each one gives you a small hit of dopamine. But dopamine is not progress. Dopamine is stimulation. Progress comes from depth. Act first, feel later. You will not always feel like focusing deeply. Your brain will resist. It will whisper, check your phone, take a break. This is boring. That's the moment that matters. That's where genius separates itself. Because genius doesn't quit when it gets uncomfortable. It leans in. Depth over distraction. Let's get honest. How long can you focus without checking something? 5 minutes? 10? If you can't focus for 30 to 60 minutes without interruption, your mind is weak. Not permanently weak, but untrained. And what is untrained can be trained. You don't need their permission to disconnect. You don't need to be reachable every second. You need to protect your cognitive power. Here's the truth. Your best ideas live beyond the first layer of effort.
When you start working, your mind is shallow, surface thoughts, obvious solutions. But if you stay, if you resist distraction, if you push through the urge to switch, something shifts. Your thinking deepens, connections form, clarity sharpens. This is where real value is created. Not in the first 10 minutes, but after 40, after 60, after sustained effort. That's the key. Most people never stay long enough to access their best thinking. They quit at discomfort, and discomfort always shows up before depth. You have a choice: escape discomfort or push through it. Let's make this practical. Schedule deep work like an appointment. Not "I'll do it later," not "when I have time." You decide the time. You protect the time. You execute at the time. No negotiation. If it's on your calendar, it's law. That's discipline. Start with one block a day, 30 to 60 minutes. Phone in another room, browser tabs closed, notifications off. One task, one objective. Complete focus. Depth over distraction. At first, it will feel slow. Your mind will wander. You'll feel restless. Good. That's training. Every time you bring your focus back, you strengthen it, like a muscle. Focus is not a trait, it's a skill, and skills improve with repetition. You have a choice. Train your focus daily, or let distraction train it for you. Because distraction is also training. Every time you switch tasks impulsively, you train your brain to crave interruption. You condition it for chaos, and chaos destroys excellence. Let's talk about multitasking again. It feels productive. It's not. It fragments your attention. It reduces the quality of your output. It increases mental fatigue. You finish the day exhausted, but with little meaningful progress. That's the illusion of busyness. Deep work may feel slower, but it moves you further. 1 hour of deep work beats 5 hours of scattered effort. Always. That's the key. Now understand this. Deep work is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront your limits. You see where you struggle. You see where you lack clarity. You see where you're not as skilled as you thought. And your ego doesn't like that, so it seeks escape through distraction. But growth requires confrontation. You don't need their permission to struggle privately. Struggle is part of mastery. Stay with the difficulty. Stay with the confusion. Stay with the friction. Breakthrough lives on the other side of friction. Act first, feel later. Here's another shift. Measure your day by depth, not hours. Instead of asking, "How long did I work?" ask, "How deeply did I work?" You can sit at a desk for 8 hours and achieve nothing meaningful. Or you can work deeply for 2 hours and transform your trajectory.
Quality beats quantity, but depth creates quality. You have a choice: optimize for appearance or optimize for impact. Deep work is invisible. No one applauds you for ignoring your phone. No one celebrates your silent focus, but the results will speak later. And that's enough. You don't need their permission to move in silence. Let's go further. Your environment must support depth. If your workspace invites distraction, you will be distracted. Design your space for focus. Clean desk, minimal tabs, defined work zone. Signal to your brain, this is where intensity happens. Clear mind, clear execution. Depth requires energy, so protect your body. Sleep well, hydrate, move daily. A tired brain seeks distraction faster. A strong body supports a sharp mind. Strong body, sharp mind. And remember this, you don't need to feel inspired to go deep. Inspiration often comes during depth, not before it. When you immerse yourself fully, ideas surface, momentum builds, flow appears. But flow is earned through consistency, through resistance, through discipline. Depth over distraction. Let me challenge you again. For the next 30 days, commit to one non-negotiable deep work block daily, even if it's just 30 minutes, especially on days you don't feel like it. Those days count double, because discipline built under resistance becomes identity. You start seeing yourself differently. I am someone who focuses. That identity changes everything. You become less reactive, less scattered, more intentional. And over time, your work separates itself, because depth creates rarity, and rarity creates demand. Now imagine this. While others are scrolling, you are building. While others are reacting, you are thinking. While others are distracted, you are sharpening. 1 year of daily deep work will put you in a different league. Not because you're smarter, but because you're focused. That's the key. Here's your takeaway. Shallow work keeps you average. Deep work makes you dangerous. Schedule it, protect it, respect it. Depth over distraction. And once you master daily depth, something even more powerful becomes necessary. Controlling your emotions. Because without emotional control, even a focused mind can sabotage itself. And that's where we go next. Chapter 6. Build emotional control. Respond. Don't react. That's the rule. You can have discipline. You can have systems. You can practice deep work daily. But if your emotions control you, everything collapses under pressure. Emotional instability destroys consistency. And consistency is the foundation of genius. You have a choice. Be ruled by impulse or be guided by intention. That's the key. Most people live in reaction mode. Someone criticizes them, they explode. Something goes wrong, they panic. Progress slows, they quit. They don't decide their behavior. Their emotions decide it for them. And emotions are temporary. Why would you let something temporary control something permanent? Respond. Don't react. Reaction is immediate. Response is intentional. Reaction is emotional. Response is strategic. Reaction is weak. Response is powerful. Genius minds pause. They feel the emotion, but they don't obey it. That's emotional control. Let's get honest. How many times have you sabotaged progress because of a bad mood? You skipped a workout because you felt tired. You stopped creating because you felt discouraged. You lashed out because you felt disrespected. You let a moment dictate your direction. That's expensive. You have a choice. Protect your progress or protect your pride. That's the key. Emotions are signals, not commands. Anger signals something feels unfair. Fear signals uncertainty. Frustration signals resistance. But signals are not instructions. You don't automatically act on every notification on your phone. So why act on every emotional notification in your mind? Pause, breathe, assess, respond. Respond. Don't react. High performers train this skill daily. They don't eliminate emotion, they regulate it. There's a difference. Emotional suppression is dangerous. Emotional control is powerful. You acknowledge what you feel, but you decide what you do. That's maturity. That's strength. That's genius. You don't need their permission to stay calm. Not everyone deserves your reaction. Not every comment deserves your energy. Not every setback deserves your breakdown. Calm is power. Let's talk about triggers. Everyone has them. Criticism, rejection, delays, disrespect. But triggers only control you if you're unaware. Awareness creates distance. When you feel emotion rising, label it. This is frustration. This is ego. This is insecurity. The moment you label it, you create space. And in that space, you have a choice: react or respond. That's the key. Here's something most people never admit. They're addicted to emotional intensity. Drama feels alive. Anger feels powerful. Outrage feels righteous. But drama destroys focus, and focus builds genius. You cannot build a disciplined life with an undisciplined mind. Emotional control is mental discipline applied internally. Act first, feel later. Sometimes that means acting disciplined even when you feel emotional. You don't skip your system because you're upset. You don't abandon structure because you're discouraged. You execute anyway, because execution stabilizes emotion. Let me say that again. Execution stabilizes emotion. When you feel anxious, take action. When you feel insecure, build skill. When you feel stuck, move. Motion reduces emotional intensity. Stillness amplifies it. You have a choice: sit in emotion or move through it. That's the key. Now, understand this. The world will test your emotional control constantly. People will misunderstand you. Plans will fail. Results will be delayed. If you collapse every time something doesn't go your way, you will never reach mastery. Mastery requires stability. Stability requires emotional regulation. Respond, don't react. Let's talk about criticism. If you're building anything meaningful, you will be criticized. Some of it unfair, some of it accurate. If you react emotionally, you lose perspective. If you respond strategically, you gain information. Ask, is there truth here? Can I improve, or should I ignore it? That's control. Emotion says attack back. Discipline says evaluate calmly. You don't need their permission to stay silent. Silence is often strength. You don't have to win every argument. You have to win your focus. That's the key. Now let's go deeper. Emotional control also applies to success. Yes, success. Excitement can be just as destabilizing as anger. You get a win. You celebrate. You relax too much. You break your system. You lose rhythm. Consistency requires emotional balance on both ends. Not too low in failure, not too high in success. Stable, grounded, focused. Genius minds don't swing wildly. They stay centered. You have a choice: chase emotional highs or build long-term momentum. Momentum wins. Let's discuss delayed gratification. Emotional people want immediate relief, immediate pleasure, immediate validation, immediate results. Disciplined people tolerate delay. They can feel discomfort without escaping it. That's rare, and rarity creates advantage. When you resist emotional impulses, you build self-trust. You prove to yourself, I am in control. That identity is powerful, because once you believe you are in control of your reactions, nothing external can dominate you. Think about that. If no comment, delay, or setback can emotionally derail you, you become unstoppable. Not because life is easy, but because you are stable. Respond, don't react. Here's a practical exercise: the 10-second rule. When emotion spikes, count to 10 before speaking or acting. It sounds simple. It's powerful. Those 10 seconds interrupt impulse. They give logic time to catch up, and logic protects your future. Another strategy: write before you respond. If you're angry, write the message. Don't send it. Reread it later. Most emotional reactions look foolish after reflection. Time cools emotion. Clarity follows. You have a choice: protect your ego or protect your progress. That's the key. And here's the ultimate truth: emotional control is self-respect. When you react impulsively,
you surrender power. When you respond intentionally, you retain it. You don't need their permission to be calm. You don't need validation to stay steady. You don't need applause to remain disciplined. Your stability is your strength, and strength builds genius. Here's your takeaway. Talent without emotional control is unstable. Discipline without emotional control is fragile. But when focus and emotional stability combine, you become rare. Train yourself to pause. Train yourself to evaluate. Train yourself to respond. Respond, don't react. Because once your emotions are under control, your execution becomes consistent. And consistent execution requires energy. Which brings us to the next foundation, training your body to strengthen your mind.
Chapter 7. Train your body to strengthen your mind. Strong body, sharp mind. You cannot separate the two. You can read every book. You can build every system. You can master emotional control. But if your body is weak, tired, and undisciplined, your mind will eventually follow. Energy is the foundation of execution. No energy, no excellence. You have a choice. Treat your body casually or train it strategically. That's the key. Most people want mental toughness without physical discipline. They want focus without fitness, clarity without movement, confidence without strength. It doesn't work that way. Your brain is part of your body. If your physiology is sluggish, your thinking will be sluggish. If your posture is weak, your presence will be weak. If your sleep is broken, your discipline will be broken. Strong body, sharp mind. Let's get honest. When you don't exercise, how do you feel? Heavy, slow, unmotivated. And when you train consistently? Clear, alert, capable. That's not random. Movement changes chemistry. Exercise reduces stress. It improves focus. It builds resilience. Resilience is not just mental, it's physical. When you push your body through discomfort, your mind learns something powerful. I can handle hard things. That belief transfers everywhere, in work, in relationships, in pressure. You don't need their permission to prioritize your health. You don't need to look like an athlete. You need to move daily, because movement builds momentum. Act first, feel later. You will not always feel like training, especially on hard days, especially when you're tired. But those are the days that matter most. Anyone can train when energized. Few can train when exhausted. That's where discipline is forged. You have a choice. Skip because you're tired, or train because you're committed. That's the key. Physical training is controlled suffering. You choose discomfort. You lift weight that challenges you. You run when your lungs burn. You push one more repetition. And each time you override the voice that says stop. That voice exists in every area of your life. When work gets difficult, it says quit. When progress slows, it says give up. If you silence that voice in the gym, you weaken it everywhere. Strong body, sharp mind. Now understand this. You don't need extreme workouts. You need consistency. 20 to 45 minutes daily. Strength training, cardio, mobility. Pick something. Stick with it. Perfection is not required. Repetition is. That's the key. Let's talk about posture. Stand up straight. Shoulders back, chin level. Your body communicates with your brain. Weak posture signals weakness. Strong posture signals confidence. It changes how you feel instantly. Try it. Shift your body. Notice your state shift. Physiology affects psychology. You have a choice. Move like you're defeated or move like you're disciplined. Your body sets the tone for your mind. Now let's talk about sleep. You cannot cheat sleep. You cannot out-discipline exhaustion forever. Sleep deprivation destroys focus. It increases emotional reactivity. It weakens willpower. And willpower is already limited.
If you stay up late scrolling, you sabotage tomorrow's discipline. That's not productivity, that's self-sabotage. You don't need their permission to go to bed early. Protect your recovery. Recover to rise. Strong body, sharp mind. Hydration, nutrition. These sound basic, but basics win. If you fuel your body poorly, you will crave distraction, you will lack clarity, you will feel foggy, and then you'll blame motivation. It's not motivation, it's mismanagement. You have a choice: fuel performance or feed impulse. That's the key. Let's go deeper. Training your body builds identity. When you exercise daily, you see yourself as disciplined. You don't negotiate with yourself as much. You don't tolerate weakness as easily. You become someone who does hard things. That identity spills over. You start executing more consistently. You start respecting your schedule more. You start demanding more from yourself because you proved you could. Proof builds confidence. Confidence builds expansion. Expansion builds results. But it starts with something simple. Move your body every day. No drama, no excuses. Strong body, sharp mind. Now consider this. If you can't control what you eat, how will you control your attention? If you can't control your sleep, how will you control your reactions? Self-control in one area strengthens self-control everywhere.
It's transferable. That's the power. And here's something most people miss. Physical training teaches delayed gratification. You don't see results immediately. You train for weeks before visible change appears. That patience trains your mind. You learn to trust the process. You learn to stay consistent without instant reward. And that mindset builds genius. Because genius requires patience. You have a choice. Demand immediate results, or commit to gradual improvement. Gradual improvement compounds. Let's talk about stress. Life will bring pressure, deadlines, expectations, uncertainty. If your body is weak, stress feels overwhelming. If your body is strong, stress feels manageable. Strength gives you margin. Margin creates stability. Stability builds clarity. Clarity drives execution. Strong body, sharp mind. Here's a challenge. For the next 30 days, move daily. No 0 days. Even if it's light, even if it's short, but never 0. Build the identity. I train daily. Not because you feel like it, because that's who you are. Act first, feel later. Some days you'll feel energized after training. Some days you won't. That's not the point. The point is keeping the promise. Self-trust grows when promises are kept. Self-trust fuels discipline. Discipline fuels genius. You don't need their permission to take care of yourself. You need responsibility. Your body is your performance vehicle. If you neglect it, don't expect elite output. Now imagine this. You wake up strong. You move with confidence. You think clearly. You act decisively. That's not luck. That's conditioning. Daily conditioning. And once your body is aligned with your mind, something interesting happens. You stop fearing repetition, because training teaches you something powerful. Boring consistency creates extraordinary results. And that leads us to the next level of genius, embracing boredom as training. Because if you can master boredom, you can master anything.
Chapter 8. Embrace boredom as training. Boring is productive. Read that again. Boring is productive. Most people are not failing because they lack intelligence. They are failing because they cannot tolerate boredom. They need stimulation. They need excitement. They need novelty. And genius does not live in novelty. It lives in repetition. You have a choice. Chase excitement or build mastery. That's the key. Mastery is repetitive. Practice,
refine, repeat, again and again and again. There is nothing glamorous about it. No fireworks, no dramatic breakthroughs every week, just small improvements layered daily. And most people quit in that layer. Why? Because it feels boring. Let's be honest. Writing daily is boring sometimes. Training daily is boring sometimes. Studying daily is boring sometimes. But boredom is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that you are in the repetition phase. And the repetition phase is where skill deepens. Boring is productive. The world has trained you to avoid boredom. Instant videos, endless scrolling, constant notifications. Your brain is addicted to stimulation. So when something slows down, it feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is not danger, it's detox. You are detoxing from distraction, and detox feels uncomfortable. You have a choice: escape boredom or leverage it. That's the key. When you sit with a task long enough, something powerful happens. Your brain stops seeking novelty. It starts seeking depth. But you must stay. Most people leave too early. They say, "This feels repetitive." Exactly. Repetition builds precision. Precision builds excellence. Excellence looks like genius. But it was built in boredom. Act first, feel later. You may not feel excited about doing the same habit for the 50th time. Do it anyway. Because excitement is unstable. Standards are stable. If your discipline depends on excitement, your progress will collapse. If your discipline depends on standards, your progress will compound. That's the key. Let's talk about identity again. If you can sit down and work without needing constant stimulation, you become rare. Rare minds create rare results. Most people need music, background noise, constant switching. They cannot tolerate silence. But silence sharpens. Boredom strengthens focus. When you remove stimulation, your mind adapts. At first, it resists. Then it stabilizes. Then it deepens. That's training. You don't need their permission to work in silence. You don't need entertainment every minute. You need resilience. And boredom builds resilience. Now understand something important. The difference between amateurs and professionals is boredom tolerance. Amateurs stop when it gets repetitive. Professionals continue. Amateurs crave novelty. Professionals respect routine. You have a choice: be entertained or be effective. That's the key. Think about physical training. You don't change exercises every day randomly. You repeat movements. Why? Because repetition builds strength. The same applies to thinking. The same applies to skill. The same applies to discipline. Boring is productive. Let's remove another illusion. Breakthroughs feel exciting, but breakthroughs are built on hundreds of ordinary days. You see the spotlight moment, you don't see the quiet repetitions. You see the finished book, you don't see the boring writing sessions. You see the strong body, you don't see the monotony of the workouts. You see the success, you don't see the monotony. That's why most people underestimate what it takes. They want the outcome without the repetition. But repetition is the price. You have a choice: pay the price daily or pay the price of regret later. That's the key. Now, let's go deeper. Boredom also exposes your thoughts. When you remove stimulation, your mind gets loud. Doubts surface, insecurities appear, unfinished thoughts return. Most people escape because of that. They don't want to sit with themselves. But self-awareness is built in stillness. If you can sit quietly and stay focused, you build mental endurance. Endurance builds confidence. Confidence builds execution. And execution builds results. Boredom is productive. Let me challenge you.
The next time you feel bored during a task, don't switch. Don't check your phone. Don't look for entertainment. Stay. Add 5 more minutes, then 5 more. Train your brain to remain. You are increasing your focus capacity, and focus capacity determines output. That's the key. Here's something powerful. When you stop chasing stimulation, you start appreciating progress. Small improvements become satisfying. Tiny gains feel meaningful. You shift from excitement-driven to progress-driven. That's maturity. You don't need hype to move. You need direction, and direction is maintained through repetition.
Now, consider this. If you only work when inspired and excited, you will work inconsistently. If you work even when bored, you will work relentlessly. Relentless beats intense. Always. You have a choice. Be intense for short bursts, or be steady for years. Years win. Let's talk about long-term advantage. Most people quit after a few months because it feels repetitive. If you simply refuse to quit during the boring phase, you eliminate most competition. Not because you're more talented, because you're more patient. Patience is strategic power. It allows compounding. Compounding creates separation. Separation creates success. Boring is productive. Now here's the mental shift. Stop asking, is this exciting? Start asking, is this effective? Effectiveness builds outcomes. Excitement builds stories. You are not here to feel entertained. You are here to build. You don't need their permission to stay consistent quietly. Let others chase stimulation. You chase structure. And understand this. When boredom no longer bothers you, distraction loses power. You become focused by default. You become calm by default. You become disciplined by default. That's the transformation. Here's your takeaway. If you can master boredom, you can master repetition. If you can master repetition, you can master skill. And if you can master skill, results become inevitable. Boring is productive. Stay with the process. Stay with the repetition. Stay with the standard. Because once you're no longer dependent on excitement, something powerful happens. You start choosing your environment more carefully, and environment determines identity, which is exactly what we build next.
Chapter 9. Design your environment, or it will design you. Your environment is not neutral. It is shaping you right now. The room you sit in, the phone in your hand, the people in your circle, the standards around you, all of it is programming you. Silently, daily, relentlessly. You think you're in control, but look closer. Are you choosing your behaviors, or are your surroundings choosing them for you? You have a choice. Design your environment or be designed by it. That's the key. Most people rely on willpower. They say, I just need more discipline. No, you need fewer temptations. You need fewer friction points. You need fewer escape routes. Genius minds don't depend on motivation. They engineer conditions. They remove distractions before they need to resist them. They make the right action easier than the wrong one. That's intelligence. That's strategy. That's daily genius. Let's make it practical. If your phone is next to you while you work, it will call you. Not loudly, quietly. A notification, a vibration, a glance. And your focus fractures. Not because you're weak, because your environment is stronger than your intention. Act first, feel later. Put the phone in another room, not because you feel disciplined, because you understand leverage. You don't need their permission to change your space. You don't need anyone to approve your structure. You have a choice. Engineer focus or explain distraction. That's the key. Look at your physical space. Is it built for execution or built for comfort? Comfort is seductive, but comfort kills intensity. If your workspace is cluttered, your mind becomes cluttered. If your environment screams entertainment, your brain seeks it. Design signals. A clean desk signals clarity. A notebook open signals action. A gym bag packed signals movement. Signals matter. Your brain responds to cues, so control the cues. That's the key. Now let's go deeper. Environment is not just physical, it's social. Who are you around? What do they normalize? Complaining? Excuses? Average thinking? Or discipline, growth, standards? You will unconsciously adapt. You will speak like them, think like them, move like them. That's human nature. So choose carefully. You don't rise to your intentions, you fall to your environment. You have a choice. Stay in circles that shrink you, or step into rooms that stretch you. That's the key. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable. Growth environments feel intimidating at first. You may feel behind. Good. That tension forces elevation. Comfort circles keep you stagnant. Stretch circles make you sharper. You don't need their permission to upgrade your circle. You don't need approval to outgrow rooms. Now let's talk about digital environment. Your feed is shaping your mind. What you consume becomes your internal dialogue. If you consume gossip, you think small. If you consume growth, you think bigger. If you consume distraction, you crave distraction. Audit your inputs. Be ruthless. Mute what weakens you. Follow what strengthens you. Curate your mind like a professional, because amateurs consume randomly. Professionals consume intentionally. That's the key. Now understand something critical. Environment reduces decision fatigue. When your surroundings are structured, you make fewer unnecessary choices. Fewer choices mean less mental drain. Less drain means more execution. If your workout clothes are ready, you train faster. If your meals are prepared, you eat better. If your calendar is structured, you move with clarity. Design eliminates negotiation, and negotiation is where discipline dies. You have a choice. Negotiate daily or decide once. That's the key. Decide once. Decide where your phone goes during work. Decide when you train. Decide when you sleep. Lock it in. Now your environment enforces the standard, instead of you fighting yourself every day. Let's address something honest. Some of you say, I can't control my environment. Maybe partially true, but you can control something. A corner of a room, an hour of your day, a playlist, a boundary. Start there. Small environmental shifts create behavioral shifts. Behavioral shifts create identity shifts. Identity shifts create outcomes. Boring is productive, and so is strategic design.
Think of it like this. If you place junk food in front of you, you will eat it. If you place a book in front of you, you will read it. You are not as random as you think. You respond to availability. So control availability. Make the right actions obvious. Make the wrong actions inconvenient. That's the key. Now let's talk about time environment. Yes, time has structure too. If your day starts chaotic, your mind stays chaotic. If your morning begins with scrolling, your focus starts fractured. Win the first hour. Protect it. No noise, no chaos, no reaction. Creation before consumption. Act first, feel later. Design mornings for output, not input. That single shift can change your trajectory. You have a choice. React to the world or build before the world touches you. That's the key. And here's something powerful. When your environment aligns with your goals, discipline feels easier. Not because you became stronger overnight, because resistance decreased. Stop glorifying struggle. Glorify design. Struggle is not a badge of honor. Execution is. And execution thrives in structured environments. Now let's zoom out. Your life as a whole is an environment. City, career, relationships. Are they aligned with your future or anchored to your past? Be honest. Sometimes growth requires relocation. Not always physical, sometimes emotional, sometimes relational, sometimes mental, but you must evaluate. You don't need their permission to redesign your life. You have a choice. Stay where it's familiar or move where it's aligned. That's the key. Here's your practical challenge. Today, change one thing in your environment. Just one. Remove one distraction. Add one performance cue. Shift one boundary. Small design, daily reinforcement. Because genius isn't dramatic, it's daily. And environment is the silent multiplier. Control the room, control the routine, control the inputs, and you control the outcomes. Here's your takeaway. Willpower is limited. Environment is powerful. If you design your space supports your discipline. If you ignore your space sabotages your discipline. Design it intentionally. Because in the next chapter, we go even deeper, beyond environment, into the standard you refuse to lower. And standards define everything.
Chapter 10. Raise your standards or lower your future. Your life is not controlled by your goals. It is controlled by your standards. Goals are wishes. Standards are rules. And rules determine behavior. You say you want more success. You say you want better health. You say you want financial freedom. But what do you tolerate? That's the real question. Because what you tolerate becomes your lifestyle. You have a choice. Raise your standards or lower your future. That's the key. Most people set goals once a year. Genius minds set standards daily. A goal says, I want to write a book. A standard says, I write every day. A goal says, I want to get fit. A standard says, I don't skip workouts. See the difference? Goals inspire. Standards enforce. Inspiration fades. Standards remain. Act first, feel later. You don't wait to feel like honoring your standards. You honor them because they are non-negotiable. That word matters. Non-negotiable. If everything is negotiable, nothing is solid. If nothing is solid, nothing compounds. And without compounding, there is no genius-level result. That's the key. Let's get uncomfortable. Where have you lowered your standards? Be honest. Do you tolerate being late? Do you tolerate broken promises to yourself? Do you tolerate mediocre effort? Every tolerance is a vote. Every time you allow it, you reinforce it. You're training yourself, and you are either training strength or weakness. You have a choice. Excuse it or eliminate it. That's the key. Standards are quiet. They don't require announcements. They require consistency. You don't post about your standards. You live them quietly, relentlessly, daily. Boring is productive. Raising your standards will feel heavy at first. Why? Because you are removing escape routes. You are closing doors you used to run through. No more, maybe tomorrow. No more, I'll try. No more, just this once. That language disappears. You replace it with, I don't do that. I don't skip. I don't break promises to myself. Identity shift. That's the power. When you raise your standards, you redefine who you are, and once identity shifts, behavior follows automatically. You don't need their permission to demand more from yourself. You don't need applause. You need alignment. Now understand something critical. High standards do not mean perfection. They mean consistency. Perfection is fragile. Consistency is powerful. Perfection says, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it. Standards say, I show up regardless. That's the key. Let's talk about energy standards. What behavior do you accept from others? Disrespect? Negativity? Excuses? If you tolerate it, you normalize it. And what's normalized becomes permanent. Raise the bar. Silently. Calmly. You don't need confrontation every time. Sometimes raising your standards simply means removing access. Distance is a standard. Boundaries are standards. Time protection is a standard. You have a choice. Keep explaining yourself or quietly elevate. That's the key. Now let's talk about internal standards. Your self-talk matters. Do you tolerate self-doubt language? I'm not good enough. I'm just not disciplined. I've always been this way. Stop. That language is below standard. You correct it immediately. I'm building discipline. I'm learning. I improve daily. Not because it sounds good, because it shapes behavior. Standards apply to thoughts too. Act first, feel later. Speak at a higher level before you feel at a higher level. That's how identity evolves.
Now here's the uncomfortable truth. When you raise your standards, some people will feel uncomfortable. Why? Because your elevation highlights their stagnation. And not everyone will celebrate your growth. Some will question it, some will mock it, some will resist it. You have a choice. Shrink to fit in, or rise and stand out. That's the key. Genius minds understand this. Standards create separation. Separation creates opportunity. Opportunity creates expansion. You cannot have extraordinary results with ordinary standards. It doesn't work. It never has. Let's talk about effort. What is your minimum standard for effort? Do you stop when it gets hard, or do you push one more layer? That extra layer is everything. Most people stop at 70%. They say that's enough. But the breakthrough lives in the final 20%, the uncomfortable 20%, the quiet 20%. Raise your effort standard, even slightly. That slight increase compounds massively over years. Boring is productive, and high standards make boredom powerful, because you show up even when it's repetitive, even when it's invisible, even when no one is watching. Now here's something practical. Pick 3 non-negotiables. Only 3, not 20. 3 daily standards you refuse to break. It could be move your body, create something, protect your focus. 3. Lock them in. These become pillars. No matter what happens, those 3 stand. That's the key. When chaos hits, and it will, your standards stabilize you. When motivation fades, and it will, your standards guide you. When doubt creeps in, and it will, your standards ground you. Standards reduce emotional decision-making, and emotional decisions create inconsistent results. You don't need perfect conditions. You need fixed standards. Now zoom out. Imagine 2 people with the same talent. One tolerates average effort. The other demands excellence from themselves daily. Who wins after 5 years? Not the more talented one, the more disciplined one. Standards outperform talent, every time. You have a choice. Rely on potential or enforce performance. That's the key. Here's the deeper transformation. When you consistently meet your own standards, self-trust increases. Self-trust changes posture. It changes voice. It changes execution. You walk differently. You decide faster because you know you follow through. That confidence cannot be faked. It is earned through kept promises, daily, quietly, relentlessly. Raise your standards, not to impress others, but to align with who you say you want to become. Because if your daily behavior doesn't match your future vision, the vision is fantasy. Standards make it real. Here's your takeaway. Your future will rise or fall to the level of what you tolerate today. Raise what you accept, raise what you allow, raise what you expect from yourself first. And once your standards are locked in, something powerful happens. You stop chasing results. You start embodying identity. And identity is what we build next.
Chapter 11. Become the person before the results appear. Most people want results first. Then they promise to change. I'll become disciplined after I succeed. I'll be confident after I win. I'll work harder after I see progress. That's backwards. Completely backwards. Results follow identity. Identity comes first. You have a choice. Wait for results or become the person now. That's the key. Genius minds understand something most people miss. You don't get success and then become disciplined. You become disciplined and then success appears. Quietly, gradually, inevitably. Act first, feel later. You behave like the person before you feel like the person. That's how transformation works. Not emotionally, behaviorally. You don't need their permission to become someone new. You don't need approval to upgrade your identity. You decide, and then you act accordingly. That's the key. Let's make this simple. Ask yourself one question. Who do I need to become to live the life I want? Not what you want to achieve. Who you must become. Because outcomes are temporary. Identity is permanent. If you only chase outcomes, you will constantly start over. But if you change identity, outcomes repeat naturally. That's the key. A disciplined person doesn't fight daily battles about whether to work. They work. A focused person doesn't debate distractions. They ignore them. A strong person doesn't negotiate with difficulty. They endure it. Identity eliminates hesitation, and hesitation destroys momentum. You have a choice. Hesitate daily or define yourself clearly. That's the key. Now here's where people struggle.
But I don't feel like that person yet. Of course you don't. Identity is built through repetition, not emotion, not imagination. Repetition. You vote for your identity through actions. Every action is a vote. Every habit is a vote. Every decision is a vote. You are casting ballots every day. The question is, who are you voting to become? That's the key. Skip a workout? Vote for weakness. Keep a promise? Vote for discipline. Finish a task? Vote for reliability. Ignore distraction? Vote for focus. Small votes, daily votes, identity votes. Genius isn't dramatic, it's daily, and identity is built daily too. You don't need a dramatic transformation, you need consistent evidence. Evidence convinces your brain, not motivation. Evidence. Act first, feel later. Work like a disciplined person. Soon you believe you are one. Speak like a confident person. Soon you believe you are one. Think like a focused person. Soon you believe you are one. Identity follows proof. That's the key. Let's destroy a myth. You do not find yourself. You build yourself, piece by piece, habit by habit, decision by decision. Waiting to discover who you are wastes years. Design who you are instead. You have a choice. Drift into identity or design identity. That's the key. Now understand this. Identity must be specific, not vague. I want to be successful means nothing. I am someone who works every day at 7 a.m. That's identity. I want to improve is weak. I finish what I start. That's identity. Clarity creates consistency, and consistency creates transformation. That's the key. Now here's something powerful. Once identity locks in, behavior becomes easier. Not effortless, but easier, because actions feel natural instead of forced. When a disciplined person wakes up early, it feels normal. When an undisciplined person wakes up early, it feels painful. Same action, different identity. Identity changes difficulty. That's the key. Now let's go deeper. Identity protects you when motivation disappears, because motivation disappears often. Identity stays. When you say, I am someone who shows up, you show up even when tired, even when stressed, even when uninspired. Identity overrides emotion. That's the power. You have a choice. Follow feelings or follow identity. That's the key. And here's something uncomfortable. Your current identity created your current life. Not luck, not circumstances. Identity. Your habits reflect who you believe you are. Your actions reflect who you believe you are. Your standards reflect who you believe you are. Change identity and life shifts. Slowly at first, then dramatically. Now let's talk about evidence stacking. This is how identity becomes permanent. Small wins stacked daily. One completed task, one disciplined decision, one kept promise, one focused session. Stack enough proof and doubt disappears. Confidence becomes logical, not emotional. Logical confidence is unshakable because it is based on evidence. That's the key. You don't need massive victories, you need consistent ones. Boring is productive. Daily evidence beats occasional intensity every time. Now here's the dangerous trap. Talking about identity instead of living it. Saying you are disciplined means nothing. Proving it means everything. Identity is earned, not declared. You don't need to announce your transformation. You need to demonstrate it. Quiet discipline, daily execution. That's identity. That's genius-level behavior. Now imagine this. Two people want success. One waits until they feel ready. The other behaves like the person immediately. One hesitates, one acts. 5 years later, the difference is enormous. Not because of talent, because of identity. You have a choice. Delay transformation or begin immediately. That's the key. Here's your challenge. Write one identity statement. Just one. I am the kind of person who blank every day. Fill the blank. Make it real. Make it measurable. Make it non-negotiable. Then prove it. Daily. Relentlessly. Because once identity is built, something powerful happens. You stop forcing discipline. Discipline becomes natural. And when discipline becomes natural, consistency becomes inevitable. That is where we go next.
Chapter 12. Make consistency your superpower. Talent is unreliable. Motivation is unpredictable. But consistency is unstoppable. This is where most people fail. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack opportunity, not because they lack potential. They fail because they stop. They start strong, then slow down, then disappear. Weeks pass. Months pass. Nothing compounds. Nothing grows. Nothing changes. You have a choice. Be intense for a moment, or be consistent for years. That's the key. Genius isn't built in bursts, it's built in repetitions. Quiet repetitions, daily repetitions, invisible repetitions. Act first, feel later. You don't need perfect energy to be consistent. You don't need perfect mood. You don't need perfect conditions. You need action. Small action. Daily action. That's the key. Most people misunderstand consistency. They think consistency means doing a lot. No. Consistency means doing something, even when it's small, even when it's boring, even when it feels insignificant. Because small actions accumulate. 1 page a day becomes a book. 1 workout at a time becomes strength. 1 focused hour a day becomes mastery. Compounding is quiet, but unstoppable. That's the key. Now understand something powerful. Consistency beats intensity every time. Working 10 hours one day and quitting for a week is not progress. Working 1 hour every day is progress.
Slow progress beats no progress. Reliable effort beats emotional effort. You have a choice. Work when inspired or work when scheduled. That's the key. Schedules create consistency. Feelings destroy consistency. If you rely on how you feel, you will stop often. If you rely on structure, you will continue. Structure protects momentum. Momentum creates identity. Identity creates results. That's the chain. And consistency is the engine. Boring is productive. Repetition feels ordinary, but repetition creates extraordinary results. The problem is simple. Most people quit during the boring phase, the phase where nothing looks impressive, the phase where results are invisible, the phase where effort feels unnoticed. That phase is where winners are separated. You have a choice. Quit during boredom or continue through it. That's the key. Let's talk about missed days, because they will happen. You will get tired. You will get busy. You will get distracted. You will miss a day. But missing once is a mistake. Missing twice is a pattern. Never miss twice. That rule is powerful. Simple, clear, effective. You fall off, return immediately. No drama, no guilt, no long speeches to yourself. Just return. Act first, feel later. Returning quickly protects identity. Waiting destroys identity. That's the key. Consistency requires forgiveness, not excuses. Forgive the slip, reject the pattern. Move forward immediately. You don't need their permission to restart. You don't need a Monday. You don't need a new month. You need action. Now. That's the key. Let's go deeper. Consistency builds trust, not from others, from yourself. Every time you follow through, you strengthen self-trust, and self-trust creates confidence. Real confidence, not loud confidence, quiet confidence. You know you show up. You know you continue. You know you finish. That certainty changes everything. Decisions become faster. Execution becomes stronger. Hesitation disappears, because consistency proved who you are. Now understand something critical. Consistency reduces resistance. The first time is hard. The 10th time is easier. The 100th time is automatic. Repetition rewires the brain. Habits reduce effort, and reduced effort increases consistency. That's the key. The hardest part is starting. After that, continuation becomes easier. So protect your streak, not perfectly, but intentionally. Track your actions, mark your days, watch the chain grow. Breaking a streak hurts. That pain protects consistency. Small psychology, big results. You have a choice. Ignore progress or track progress. That's the key. Now let's talk about time. Consistency respects time, not in dramatic ways, in daily deposits. Think long-term, not days, not weeks, years. 5 years of consistency changes everything. 10 years of consistency makes you unrecognizable. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in 5 years. Consistency closes that gap. Slow improvement becomes massive transformation. That's the key. Now imagine two people. One works hard occasionally. One works steadily. After 1 month, the difference is small. After 1 year, the difference is obvious. After 5 years, the difference is extreme. Consistency multiplies time. Time multiplies results. That's how genius is built. Quietly, daily, relentlessly. Now let's remove another myth. Consistency is not perfection. You will have bad days, low energy days, distracted days. Still show up. Lower the intensity if needed, but keep the habit alive. Even minimal action counts. 5 minutes counts. 1 page counts. 1 set counts, because consistency survives, and survival matters more than performance. That's the key. Show up badly instead of not showing up. Bad consistency beats perfect inconsistency every time. You have a choice. Protect perfection or protect consistency. That's the key. Here's the transformation. At first, consistency feels forced. Then it feels structured. Then it feels normal. Then it feels like identity. And once it becomes identity, you become unstoppable. because stopping feels unnatural. That's the final stage, automatic discipline. Quiet execution, daily progress. Genius isn't dramatic, it's daily, and consistency is the mechanism. Here's your takeaway. You don't need massive breakthroughs, you need reliable days. One day at a time, one action at a time, one repetition at a time. Because in the end, consistency is the difference between potential and mastery.
And once consistency is built, something powerful happens. Results begin to appear. Slowly at first, then faster. And that's exactly where we go next. Chapter 13. Trust the process when results are invisible. At the beginning, nothing happens. You work, you try, you improve, and still nothing seems to change. No recognition, no big results, no dramatic progress, just effort. Quiet effort, daily effort. This is where most people quit. Not because they failed, because they couldn't see progress fast enough. You have a choice. Quit when results are invisible, or continue until results become undeniable. That's the key. Genius isn't built where results are obvious. It's built where results are invisible. The early phase feels slow, painfully slow. You put in hours and see small improvements, tiny improvements, almost nothing. And your mind starts whispering, is this working? Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm wasting time. That voice destroys more potential than failure ever will, because it convinces you to stop. Act first, feel later. Work even when progress feels unclear, because progress is happening beneath the surface. That's the key. Think about a seed planted in the ground. For weeks, nothing appears. No leaves, no stem, no visible growth. But underground, roots are forming. Foundations are building. Strength is developing. Invisible growth. Then one day, the surface breaks, and suddenly it looks fast, but it wasn't fast. It was prepared. Your progress works the same way. You have a choice. Demand visible proof or trust invisible growth. That's the key. Most people need constant validation. Likes, praise, results, feedback. Without it, they lose energy. Without it, they lose direction. Without it, they stop. But genius minds operate differently. They trust the process. They work without applause. They improve without attention. They execute without recognition. You don't need their permission to keep going. You don't need approval to continue. You need commitment. That's the key. Invisible progress is real progress. Skill improves quietly. Focus strengthens quietly. Discipline deepens quietly. Identity evolves quietly. And then one day, it shows. But only if you stayed long enough. Now understand something important. Progress is not linear. It is delayed. You improve for months before results show. You prepare long before breakthroughs happen. The outside world only sees the breakthrough. They never see the preparation. They call it sudden success, but you know better. You know the truth. Years of invisible effort. That's how genius is built. Quietly, daily, relentlessly. Boring is productive, because boring is where foundations grow. The dramatic moments come later. The quiet moments build them. That's the key. Now let's talk about impatience. Impatience kills momentum. You want results now. You want proof now. You want confirmation now. But growth takes time. Skill takes time. Mastery takes time. Identity takes time. You cannot rush transformation. You have a choice. Rush the process or respect the timeline. That's the key. The person who stays wins. Not the smartest, not the most talented, the one who stays. Persistence beats brilliance when brilliance quits early. Every time. Act first, feel later. Show up even when nothing feels different, because consistency compounds invisibly. Every session adds something, even when you can't measure it, even when you can't see it.
Every repetition strengthens you. You are building capacity, and capacity eventually produces results. That's the key. Now imagine this. Two people start at the same level. One quits after 3 months because progress feels slow. The other continues for 3 years. Who becomes exceptional? The one who stayed. Time rewards patience. Time multiplies consistency. Time reveals hidden growth. That's how genius emerges. You have a choice. Measure daily results or measure long-term change. That's the key. Daily measurement creates frustration. Long-term measurement creates perspective. Look at where you were a year ago. Look at your habits. Look at your mindset. Look at your discipline. You've changed more than you think, but daily comparison hides progress. Zoom out. Always zoom out. That's the key. Now here's a powerful shift. Stop asking, is this working? Start asking, am I working? That question puts control back in your hands. Results are delayed. Effort is immediate. Focus on what you control. Daily actions, daily habits, daily standards. Results will follow inevitably because effort compounds. That's the key. Now let's address doubt. Doubt grows strongest during invisible progress because uncertainty creates fear. You don't know when results will arrive. You don't know how long it will take. You don't know exactly what will happen. But certainty is not required. Commitment is. You move forward without guarantees. That is strength. You continue without proof. That is discipline. You execute without applause. That is genius behavior. You have a choice. Wait for certainty or move through uncertainty. That's the key.
Here is something important to remember. Slow progress is still progress. Small growth is still growth. Invisible improvement is still improvement. Nothing is wasted. Every focused hour matters. Every disciplined decision matters. Every repeated action matters. Even when it feels small, especially when it feels small. Because small actions build big identities. Genius isn't dramatic, it's daily. And daily effort eventually becomes visible success, but only for those who remain. Here's your takeaway. The process works if you work. Stay long enough to see it. Stay disciplined enough to earn it. Stay patient enough to trust it. Because the results you want are already forming. Quietly, slowly, inevitably. And in the final chapter, everything comes together. Not in a dramatic moment, but in a decision. The decision to live this way permanently.
Chapter 14. Live the discipline, not the motivation. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. Most people live in cycles. They feel motivated, they start strong. They feel excited. Then motivation fades. Energy drops, focus weakens, progress stops. Then they wait. They wait for motivation to come back. And when it does, they start again. The cycle repeats again and again. Years pass. Nothing stabilizes, nothing compounds, nothing becomes permanent. You have a choice. Live by motivation or live by discipline. That's the key. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation depends on feelings. Discipline depends on decisions. Feelings change. Decisions stay. That's the difference. Act first. Feel later. You do the work whether you feel like it or not. You show up whether energy is high or low. You continue whether progress is fast or slow. Because discipline is not a mood, it is a system. That's the key. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline means forcing yourself every day. No. Real discipline removes the need for force. Real discipline becomes routine, automatic, predictable, stable. like brushing your teeth. You don't need motivation to brush your teeth. You do it because it's part of your life. That's discipline. Work should feel the same way. Training should feel the same way. Learning should feel the same way. Non-negotiable, normal, expected. You have a choice. Treat discipline like a project or treat discipline like a lifestyle. That's the key. A project ends, a lifestyle continues. Genius minds live discipline. They don't visit it. They don't try it. They live it. Daily, quietly, relentlessly. Boring is productive, and disciplined lives often look boring from the outside. Same routines, same habits, same structure, day after day. But inside that repetition is transformation. Inside that repetition is mastery. Inside that repetition is power. That's the key.
Now here is something important. Discipline simplifies life. Without discipline, every day is negotiation. Should I work? Should I rest? Should I train? Should I focus? Too many decisions, too much friction. Discipline eliminates negotiation. You already decided. Decision fatigue disappears. Energy increases. Execution improves. That's the key. You don't wake up and debate, you wake up and execute. That identity removes resistance. You have a choice. Debate daily or decide once. That's the key. Now let's talk about hard days, because discipline is tested on hard days. Anyone can perform when life feels easy. Anyone can work when energy is high. Anyone can focus when everything is calm. But difficult days reveal truth. Stress, fatigue, disappointment, setbacks. Those moments expose your structure. If your system depends on motivation, you stop. If your system depends on discipline, you continue. That's the difference. Act first, feel later. Do the work even when it feels heavy, especially when it feels heavy. Because hard days strengthen discipline faster than easy days ever will. That's the key. Now understand this. Motivation creates starts. Discipline creates finishes. Many people start, few people finish. Finishing builds identity. Finishing builds confidence. Finishing builds mastery. You become known, even to yourself, as someone who completes things. That reputation changes everything. You trust yourself. Others trust you. Opportunities trust you. Because discipline is reliability, and reliability is rare. That's the key. Let's remove another myth. Discipline does not mean working non-stop. Discipline includes rest, planned rest, intentional recovery, strategic breaks. Rest without structure becomes avoidance. Rest with structure becomes strength. Disciplined people recover so they can continue, not so they can escape. You have a choice: escape through rest or recover through rest. That's the key. Now imagine your life 5 years from now. If you rely on motivation, your progress will be unstable. Starts and stops, high peaks, low valleys, inconsistent growth. But if you rely on discipline, your progress stabilizes. Steady growth, reliable habits, clear direction, compounding results. 5 years of discipline transforms identity completely. 10 years makes you unrecognizable. That is not exaggeration, that is math. Consistency multiplied by time creates transformation, and discipline protects consistency. That's the key. Here is something powerful. Discipline creates freedom, not restriction. Freedom, because when you control your actions, your life becomes predictable, and predictability creates stability. Stability creates confidence. Confidence creates opportunity. Undisciplined lives feel chaotic. Disciplined lives feel directed. You choose your direction. You have a choice. Be controlled by impulse or control your actions. That's the key. Now let's bring everything together. You stopped waiting for inspiration. You built routines. You protected focus. You embraced boredom. You designed your environment.
You raised your standards. You built identity. You became consistent. You trusted invisible progress. Now comes the final decision. Not a dramatic decision, a quiet one. The decision to live this way permanently. Not for a week, not for a month, not for a challenge. For life. Because genius isn't an event, it is a lifestyle. Daily habits, quiet discipline, long-term thinking. You don't need their permission to live this way. You don't need approval to stay committed. You decide, and then you continue. That's the key. Here is your final takeaway. Motivation will visit. Discipline must stay. Let motivation inspire you, but let discipline define you. Because in the end, genius isn't talent. Genius isn't luck. Genius isn't sudden brilliance. Genius is daily discipline lived for years, quietly, relentlessly, without stopping. And your final step is simple. Start tomorrow, continue tomorrow, and never stop.
Closing. Genius isn't a personality trait. It's a daily standard. It's how you wake up, how you think, how you respond, how you repeat. Not once, not when inspired, but every single day. The difference between average and extraordinary is not intelligence. It's consistency. So starting tomorrow, no drama, no waiting, no excuses. Choose one habit, protect it, repeat it. Because genius isn't dramatic, it's daily. And now, it's your move.